Well, hello there, and welcome to my kitchen table, a place in most homes where we can sit with family and friends and just talk for hours. We're off to the northwest of England today, the predominantly rural Cumbria, which contains the Lake District National Park, a World Heritage Site. It's considered one of England's finest areas of natural beauty. It's great for hikers, daily walkers, ramblers, mountain climbers, water sports enthusiasts, you name it. It's also really nice for those who just want to take it easy. Unfortunately, the area is also known for the Cumbrian shootings. That was a killing spree which occurred on the 2nd of June 2010 when a lone gunman killed 12 people and injured 11 more. So if you're ready, take a seat and I'll tell you a story. Derrick Bird was the son of Joseph and Mary Bird. He had a twin brother, David, and another older brother. He lived alone in Rowrah and had two sons. He was also a grandfather. He was described by many as a popular and quiet man. He worked as a self-employed taxi driver in Whitehaven. In the early hours of the 2nd of June 2010, Derrick Bird left his home in Rowrah, Cumbria, and drove his Citroen Zara Picasso to his twin brother David's home in Lamplugh and shot him. He shot him 11 times in the head and torso with a .22 caliber rifle, killing him. I always think it's strange when a twin kills their twin. It must be like looking in the mirror and killing yourself. Just a thought. Bird then drove to Frizzington, to the home of his family's lawyer, Kevin Commons. Bird prevented Commons from driving away by firing twice with a double-barrelled sawn-off shotgun, hitting him in the shoulder. Commons got out of his car and staggered to the entrance of his farmyard, where Bird killed him with two rifle shots to the head. He then moved on towards Whitehaven. Bird drove to a taxi rank on Duke Street in Whitehaven, and he called over one of the other drivers, Darren Rucastle. Obviously, he knew Bird, but they recently had a bit of a conflict over Rucastle's practice of poaching fares, and on another occasion, he's actually damaged the tyres on Bird's car and openly bragged about it. As he approached Bird's taxi, he was shot twice at point-blank range with the rifle, hitting him in the lower face, chest and abdomen. Rucastle died from his injuries. He was the only person to die in Whitehaven, but he wasn't the only one to be shot. Soon after killing Rucastle, Bird drove alongside another taxi driver, Donald Reed, and shot him in the back, wounding him. He then done a turn in the road, or a three-point turn, or a turnabout, whatever you want to call it. He turned around back towards the taxi rank, and he fired twice, again at Reed, but he missed him. He then drove away from the taxi rank and stopped alongside another driver named Paul Wilson, who was walking down Scotch Street. He called him over to his vehicle, and as he did with Rucastle, when Wilson answered the call to come on over, Bird shot him. He got him in the right side of his face with the sawn-off shotgun, severely injuring him. As a result of the shootings, unarmed officers at the local police station they'd been informed by local residents and began following Bird's taxi. He drove down Coach Road and he fired his shotgun at another passing taxi, injuring the driver, but also injuring his female passenger. The driver was Terry Kennedy. The female passenger was Emma Percival. He was then able to flee the officers as he aimed his shotgun at them, and when they ducked for cover, he took advantage of it and got away. In the wake of the Whitehaven shootings, residents there and in neighbouring towns of Egremont and Seascale were urged by officials to stay indoors. During the manhunt, the gates of the nearby Sellafield nuclear reprocessing plant were closed, and the afternoon shift were told not to come in. That's the first lockdown in the history of the plant. A massive manhunt for Bird was launched by the Cumbria Constabulary with the assistance of the civil nuclear constabulary officers. Bird proceeded to drive through several local towns, firing apparently at random and calling a majority of victims over to his taxi before shooting them. Near Egremont, Bird tried to shoot Jacqueline Williamson as she walked her dog, but luckily she managed to get away without injury. Upon arriving in Egremont, he stopped alongside Susan Hughes as she walked home from shopping, and he shot her in the chest and the abdomen with the shotgun. He then got out of his taxi and got into a struggle with Susan, and she fought for her life before he fatally shot her in the back of the head with his rifle. Then, after a short distance to Bridgend, Bird fired the shotgun at Kenneth Fishburne. He was just walking on the other side of the road. He suffered fatal wounds to the head and chest. This was followed by the shooting of Leslie Hunter, who was called over to Bird's taxi before being shot in the face at close range with the shotgun, then a second time in the back as he turned away to protect himself. Hunter survived his injuries. Bird then went south towards Thornhill when he fired his shotgun at Ashley Glaister, a teenage girl. However, he missed her. He then passed Carlton and travelled onto the village of Wilton, where he tried to visit Jason Carey, a member of a diving club that Bird used to belong to. But he left there when Carey's wife answered the door. Soon afterwards, Bird shot Jennifer Jackson once in the chest with the shotgun and twice in the head with his rifle, killing her. He then drove past Townhead Farm, but he turned back towards the farm and fired his shotgun, fatally hitting Jennifer Jackson's husband, James. He hit him in the head, and he also wounded another woman named Christine Hunter Hall. He then drove back to Carlton and killed Isaac Dixon, a mole catcher, who was fatally shot twice at close range as he was talking to a farmer in a field. A former semi-professional rugby player, Gary Purdom, was soon shot and killed while working in a field outside the Red Admiral Hotel in Boonwood, near Gosforth. Bird then drove towards Seascale. Along the way, he started driving slowly and he was waving other drivers to pass him. He shot a motorist named James Clark, who suffered a fatal wound to the head, although it wasn't really clear at first what it was that killed him, the shot to the head or the crash he had afterwards. Bird then encountered another motorist named Harry Berger at a narrow one-way passage underneath a railway bridge. When Berger allowed Bird to enter first, Bird fired him as he passed him, shooting him twice and causing severe injuries to his right arm. 3 armed response vehicles attempted to pursue Bird, but were later blocked out of the tunnel by Berger's vehicle, and they had to push it out of the way in order for them to get past. Meanwhile, Bird had driven onto Drigg Road, but he fired twice at Michael Pike, a retired man who was cycling in front of him. The first shot missed, but the second one hit Pike in the head and killed him. Seconds later, while on the same street, Bird fatally shot Jane Robinson in the neck and head at point-blank range, after apparently calling her over as if he was asking for directions. After the killing of Robinson, who was the final fatality in the shootings, witnesses described Bird as driving increasingly erratically down the street. At 11:33, police constables Philip Lewis and Andrew Laverack spotted Bird as his car passed by their vehicle. They attempted to pursue him, but were delayed by roadworks, so lost sight of him. Soon afterwards, Bird drove on to Eskdale Valley, where he wounded Jackie Lewis in the neck with his rifle as she was out walking. At this point, his route had become clearer to police. They were obviously following him on a map during their search for him. Next, Bird stopped alongside Fiona Moretta, who leans into the passenger window, again believing he was going to ask her for directions. Instead, he injured her in the chest with the rifle, then continued onward towards the village of Boot. Doesn't Cumbria have some great names of their towns? Boot. Arriving in Boot, Bird briefly stopped at a business premises called Sam's Travel and fired the rifle at nearby people, but missed them all. Continuing further into the village, he continued firing at random and missing everyone. Bird eventually fired his rifle at 2 men, hitting and severely wounding Nathan Jones in the face. This was shortly followed by a couple who had stopped their car to take a photo. Samantha Christie suffered severe wounds to the face from a rifle bullet. Christie's partner, Craig Ross, fled upon Bird's instruction and was then fired at, but escaped injury. Shortly after firing at 2 cyclists, Bird crashed his taxi into several vehicles and a stone wall, damaging a tyre. Briefly continuing onwards, he abandoned his car at a beauty spot near Boot called Doctor Bridge. A nearby family of 4, who were unaware of the shootings, offered assistance to Bird, after he crashed and burst his tyre, but were quickly turned down and advised to leave. Bird removed the rifle from his taxi and walked over a bridge leading to Oak Howe Woods. He was last seen at 12:30. Shortly afterwards, police confirmed that there had been fatalities and that they were searching for a suspect. Police later announced that they were searching for the driver of a dark grey Citroen Zara Picasso driven by the suspect, who was identified as Derrick Bird. At around 12:36, armed police officers and dog handlers arrived at the scene of Bird's abandoned taxi and began a search in and around the wooded area. At 2 p.m, Deputy Chief Constable Stuart Hyde announced that Bird's body had been found in a wooded area along with a rifle. Police confirmed shortly afterwards that members of the public who had taken shelter during the incident could now return to their normal activities. At 3 p.m, during his first session of Prime Minister's questions, David Cameron confirmed at least 5 people were dead, including the gunman. Over the next few hours, Bird's shooting of his brother and solicitor were announced. Later that evening, a police press conference at Whitehaven announced that 12 people had been killed and a further 11 were injured. 3 of them critically, but they survived. And that the suspect had killed himself. They also confirmed that two weapons, a sawn-off shotgun and a .22 caliber rifle with a scope and a silencer, had been used by the suspect in the attacks. And they had 30 crime scenes to investigate. The shootings were considered the worst mass casualty shooting in the UK since the 1996 Dunblane school massacre, in which 16 small children and their teacher were gunned down by a lone gunman, who then killed himself. A report later determined that Bird fired at least 47 rounds during the shootings, 29 from the shotgun and 18 from the rifle. 6 live .22 rounds were also found on Bird's person, with an additional 8 loaded in the rifle. A search of Bird's home later recovered 750 rounds of live .22 ammunition, 240 live shotgun cartridges, and a large amount of financial paperwork. Police investigating the killings also found that Bird was the subject of an ongoing investigation with His Majesty's Revenue and Customs for tax evasion. HM Revenue and Customs, they're the ones who do our tax. This suggests that he could have been pressured by the threat of a possible future prosecution and or punishment at the time of the killings, suggesting a possible cause for his actions. According to Mark Cooper, a fellow taxi driver who had known him for about 15 years, said Bird had accumulated around £60,000 in a secret bank account and was worried that he would be sent to prison for hiding the cash from the revenue and customs people. The police stated that the shootings took place along a 24-kilometre or 15-mile stretch of the Cumbrian coastline. Helicopters from neighbouring forces were used in the manhunt, while those from RAF Search and Rescue Force and the Yorkshire Air Ambulance responded to the casualties. A major incident was declared by North Cumbria University Hospital's NHS Trust at West Cumberland Hospital, and the Accident and Emergency Department at Cumberland Infirmary in Carlisle was on full emergency standby. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II paid tribute to the victims, saying that she was deeply shocked by the shootings and shared the nation's grief and horror. The Prince of Wales later visited Whitehaven in the wake of the tragedy. The Prime Minister, David Cameron, and Home Secretary at the time, Theresa May, also visited West Cumbria. Amy Reid, the local Member of Parliament for Copeland, called the incident the blackest day in our community's history. Bird had been a licensed firearm holder, and the incident sparked debate about further gun control in the United Kingdom. This had previously been addressed after Dunblane and the Hungerford shootings. It had led to increased firearm control in the UK, but they were obviously not stringent enough. The body of Derrick Bird was formally identified at Furness General Hospital, Barrow-in-Furness, and he was cremated as a private service on the 18th of June 2010. There had been speculation that Bird may have had a grudge against the people associated with Sellafield nuclear power plant that he worked for as a joiner. He resigned in 1990 due to an allegation of theft of wood from the plant. He was subsequently convicted and given a 12-month suspended sentence. 3 of the dead were former employees, although there's no evidence that they were involved with his resignation or being caught for the theft. A fellow taxi driver who described himself as one of Bird's best friends and was shot in the hand has claimed that Bird had a relationship with a Thai girl that he'd met on holiday in Pattaya in Thailand. It has been further claimed by another friend of Bird that he had sent her £1,000, and she subsequently ended their relationship via text message. He said Bird had been made a fool of. It's also been speculated that Bird had been involved with a family dispute over a will. The speculation was heightened when it was revealed that Bird had murdered his brother and the family solicitor or lawyer. On the 9th of June 2010, a week after the incident, memorial services were held in the west of Cumbria, and towns affected by the shootings followed by a minute's silence at midday. The minute's silence for the Cumbria victims was also marked in Parliament. The funerals of the majority of Bird's victims were held at various churches in West Cumbria. Time doesn't heal all wounds. It just makes wounds easier to deal with. And I truly hope the Cumbrian residents affected by this horrendous event got the help and support that they needed. Thank you so much for allowing me to tell you this story, and thank you so much for listening. If you found it interesting, hit the like button, subscribe, it's free, so don't hold back. And remember, smile is a curve, it just puts things straight. I've been Sue, TTFN.